What if the cure for your chronic like jaw-clenching stress isn't an expensive therapy retreat or, overhauling your entire life, but exactly 20 seconds of just staring at your coffee mug.
I mean, it sounds like a massive exaggeration, right? Or
Ugh.
maybe just another one of those internet wellness trends promising a quick fix for modern burnout.
Right. And if you are listening to this in traffic right now, like gripping the steering wheel and running late, you're probably rolling your eyes at the idea that looking at a beverage is going to solve your problems. But stick with us,
Yeah, please do.
because today's deep dive is pulling from a really unexpected, diverse stack of sources. We've got clinical polyvagal trauma therapy, resources on neurodiversity, research from a chiropractic clinic, and a deeply fascinating psychological study from rural India.
And the mission today is to essentially connect the dots between all of these seemingly unrelated fields.
Yeah, to find the common thread.
Exactly. We are looking at a concept from modern trauma therapy known as a glimmer, and we're mapping it directly onto the biological reality of micro moments of gratitude.
Which is such a cool concept.
It really is. And by the end of this deep dive, you'll understand how to use these tiny fleeting moments to fundamentally hack your nervous system, improve your vagal tone, and build real emotional resilience without needing, hours of meditation.
Okay, let's unpack this. Because before we can understand how something as simple as gratitude actually heals the body physically, we really have to look at what chronic stress is doing to our hardware in the first place.
Right.
Like, we talk about being stressed all the time, but what is actually happening under the hood?
Well, we have to look at the autonomic nervous system. Your nervous system has this subconscious software running in the background 24/7. It's called neuroception.
Neuroception.
Yeah. Basically, your brain and body are constantly scanning your environment, your relationships, and even your own internal physical sensations to answer one core evolutionary question.
Which is, am I safe?
Exactly. Am I safe right now?
So it's essentially like a home security system. But if someone is dealing with chronic daily stress, does that mean their security system is like malfunctioning?
That's a really good way to frame it.
Like the alarm is just stuck in the on-end position, interpreting every minor inconvenience, like spilling coffee or getting a vague text message from a boss as a literal life or death five-alarm fire.
That is a highly accurate way to look at it. The sensors have become entirely too sensitive. When your neuroception detects danger, even if that danger is just an unread email, it pushes you out of a regulated state.
Then into survival mode.
Right. You might get launched into sympathetic activation. That is your classic fight or flight mode. Your heart races, your digestion stops, your muscles just flood with tension.
And there's another side to that, right? Because
Got
the
it?
sources talk about what happens when the stress is just too much to fight,
Yes. If the threat feels insurmountable, your nervous system might just drop you into dorsal vagal activation.
which is the freeze response.
Exactly. The freeze or shutdown response.
Yeah.
You feel disconnected, numb, completely immobilized. Your body is basically playing dead to survive.
Wow.
And millions of people are walking around every single day, oscillating between those two states, panicked or numb.
Which brings us to the biological antidote. If a trigger is what sets off that malfunctioning home security alarm, the antidote is what trauma therapists call a glimmer. I honestly just love that term.
It's a great word. It was coined by Deb Dana, a clinical social worker and a major pioneer in polyvagal theory, and popularized more recently by psychologists like Dr. Justine Grosso.
A glimmer is basically the exact opposite of a trigger, right?
Right. It is a micro moment of safety, connection, and ease. When you experience a glimmer, it signals your nervous system to turn off the alarm and activate the ventral vagal state.
The rest and digest system.
Exactly that. It is the only biological state where social engagement, physical healing, and, genuine calm are actually possible.
Looking through the sources, what struck me is how intensely sensory these glimmers are.
Oh, absolutely. They're very grounded.
Like, they are not big, profound philosophical realizations about the meaning of life. They are tiny, hyper-specific physical experiences.
Yes.
The literature gives examples like feeling the soft fur on a dog's ears, or looking up and noticing the way the light hits a cloud, or just wrapping your hands around a warm cup of coffee and actually feeling that heat radiating into your palms.
They are anchors. They are micro moments of safety that tether you back to the present physical reality, essentially proving to your body that you are not currently under attack.
So, if a glimmer is a sensory micro moment of safety, how does this connect to gratitude? Because usually when we talk about gratitude, we think of a very deliberate, almost chore-like practice.
Right, like sitting down with a leather journal at the end of the day and forcing yourself to write out a list of 3 things you're thankful for.
Exactly.
Well, the traditional view of gratitude is often treated as a long-term practice or even a broad personality trait. But the emerging research is pointing us towards something much more immediate and far less time-consuming.
Which brings us to that study from India, which absolutely blew my mind.
It's a fantastic study.
We're looking at a 2025 quantitative study involving 250 adults in the Saharsa and Kagaria districts of Bihar, India. And instead of looking at long-term intensive gratitude journaling, the researchers specifically studied micro moments of gratitude.
Fleeting, spontaneous reflections on positive experiences as they happen.
Yeah. And doing this research in a rural and semi-urban Indian context is incredibly vital.
It really is, because it removes that sort of Western affluent wellness culture bias.
Right. We are looking at human biology and environments that often face significant socioeconomic challenges, where people might not have access to formal mental health resources, therapy apps, or, expensive meditation retreats.
And the data they pulled from standardized psychological testing was undeniable. Using the GQ-6 and PSS-10 scales, they found a massive negative correlation between micro-gratitude and daily stress.
Here is the part that stopped me in my tracks, though. These tiny passing moments of spontaneous gratitude accounted for a 20% variance in the perceived stress scores among the participants.
20%, right.
That is a staggering statistical drop in daily stress for something that costs no money and takes almost zero time. It is a fundamental rewrite of their daily baseline.
It really is.
I need to play the skeptic here for a second, though. I read that, and my immediate thought was, hold on. You're telling me I'm stuck in a systemic fight-or-flight loop, my cortisol is maxed out, my security alarm is blaring, and having a random 5-second thought of, oh, that's a nice sunset, is going to overpower a flood of stress hormones.
It sounds totally unfeasible when you put it like that.
Right. Mechanically, that makes no sense to me. It feels mathematically impossible.
It does seem completely disproportionate. How does 5 seconds defeat hours of chronic stress?
Well, to understand the mechanics of that, we have to look at what those 5 seconds actually do to your brain's processing power. There's a concept in psychology called Fredrickson's broaden and build theory. Okay, break that down for us. What is broaden and build?
So, when you are stressed, your brain biologically forces you into tunnel vision. It is an evolutionary survival tactic.
Because if a tiger is chasing you, your brain shuts down peripheral processing.
Exactly. You shouldn't be admiring the sunset or thinking about your relationships. You need to focus 100% of your cognitive capacity entirely on the threat.
Right, that makes total sense for a tiger, but what happens when the tiger is just your email inbox?
That is the problem.
Hmm.
Chronic stress keeps us in that tunnel vision permanently. We literally lose the cognitive ability to see solutions, alternate perspectives, or anything outside of the problem we are fixated on.
Wow.
What Fredrickson's theory explains is that positive emotions, specifically these micro moments of gratitude, instantly broaden your cognitive repertoire. They chemically break the tunnel vision.
So even a 5-second moment of appreciating the warmth of that coffee mug temporarily shifts your attention away from the stressor, and it proves to your brain that the world isn't entirely made of threats.
What's fascinating here is that when you map the psychology onto the biology, the connection is seamless. A glimmer is a micro moment of gratitude.
They're the exact same thing.
Yes. Whether a clinical trauma therapist calls it a glimmer or a research psychologist calls it micro-gratitude, they are describing the exact same mechanism.
Yeah.
It's a tiny sensory cue that shifts the brain away from a threat state and broadens your capacity to cope with whatever comes next.
Okay, so we know these micro moments shift our cognitive focus and shatter that tunnel vision. But what is the actual physical footprint of this shift inside the body?
Like the actual chemistry.
Yeah. How does a fleeting feeling of thankfulness become literal physical armor against stress?
Well, it all comes down to neurophysiology.
Hmm.
When we look at data compiled by the Greater Good Science Center and a really detailed 2023 article in Frontiers in Psychology, we see that regular gratitude practice creates highly specific, measurable changes in brain chemistry.
I read that it changes how different parts of the brain literally talk to each other.
It does. It increases activation in the prefrontal cortex. That is your brain's executive control center. It handles logic, decision-making, and emotional regulation.
Okay.
At the same time, It improves communication between that prefrontal cortex and the amygdala, which is your emotional alarm system.
So instead of your amygdala just screaming danger and hijacking your nervous system,
Right, your prefrontal cortex can calmly step in and say, hey, we're actually okay right now, stand down.
and when the prefrontal cortex takes the wheel, the physical cascade is amazing. The sources show that your cortisol levels visibly drop, which reduces chronic inflammation, and your heart rate variability, or HRV, increases.
We should probably define HRV because it's a crucial metric in longevity and health.
Yeah, please do.
A higher heart rate variability means the time intervals between your heartbeats are fluctuating slightly, which is actually a really good thing.
Wait, you want them to fluctuate?
Yes, it means your nervous system is highly adaptable. It can handle a spike in stress and then bounce back to baseline very quickly. And that physical adaptability is directly controlled by the vagus nerve.
Ah, the vagus nerve. That kept coming up, especially in the chiropractic research.
It's the star of the show.
It is this massive physical link, like a superhighway, running from your brainstem down through your neck into your chest and right down into your abdomen, touching almost every major organ along the way.
It is the primary physical pathway of your parasympathetic nervous system. It's the wiring for the calm and connect response. What researchers have found is that gratitude and glimmers act as a literal workout for this nerve.
Like going to the gym for your nervous system.
Exactly. Every time you notice a glimmer, you are flexing your vagus nerve.
Mm.
Over time, this increases your vagal tone.
Let me throw out an analogy here. If the nervous system is a car skidding out on the ice of chronic anxiety, is noticing a glimmer essentially like hitting the anti-lock brakes for your brain. You pump the brakes, and it allows your prefrontal cortex to steer again.
That is a brilliant way to picture it. And biologically, when you pump those brakes, the vagus nerve secretes a neurotransmitter called acetylcholine.
Wait, so it's a literal chemical being dropped into the bloodstream?
Yes. Acetylcholine acts like a chemical tranquilizer for your heart.
Wow.
It physically slows down the pacemaker cells in your heart muscle, lowering your blood pressure and heart rate.
That's incredible.
Higher vagal tone means your body is incredibly efficient at deploying that chemical tranquilizer, which means better sleep, better digestion, a stronger immune system, and far more emotional balance.
It's wild that noticing a nice cup of coffee can eventually lead to better digestion, but the neurobiology absolutely backs it up.
Completely.
You are using neuroplasticity to train your brain to expect safety. But, and this is a massive, but there is a catch.
There's always a catch.
Here is where it gets really interesting, because trauma expert Deb Dana points out a very specific clinical instruction for this to actually work.
Oh, right, the savoring.
Yeah, it is not enough to just notice a glimmer, check it off a list, and move on. You can't just say, oh, nice dog, and go right back to stressing about your inbox. You have to savor it.
That distinction is the crux of the entire practice. Deb Dana talks about the difference between savoring the experience and savoring the state.
What does that mean in practice? Give me an example.
Okay, let's use the coffee. If you savor the experience, you might think, oh, this is good coffee. I'm glad I bought this roast. I should remember to buy it again.
So you're still kind of analyzing it.
Exactly. You're staying in your head,
What?
holding onto the story of the moment.
Yeah.
But if you savor the state, you drop the story entirely.
Okay.
You focus purely on the physical sensations in your body, the heat on your palms, the specific smell, the feeling of your shoulders dropping half an inch as you exhale.
And she gives a very specific time frame for savoring that state, doesn't she?
She does. To actually rewire that neuroplasticity and engage the vagal brake we just talked about, you must hold that glimmer in your mind and body for 20 to 30 seconds.
20 to 30 seconds. That sounds so incredibly short on paper, but if you are actively anxious, stopping to focus on the warmth of your coffee mug for a full 30 seconds can feel like an absolute eternity.
It really can. It requires intense intention.
Yeah.
Your brain's default negativity bias is going to fight you.
Oh, for sure.
It will try to pull you back to the stressors because it literally thinks it's keeping you alive.
Yeah.
Holding the glimmer for 20 to 30 seconds is the heavy lifting of rewiring your nervous system. You are forcing the vagal brake to engage, teaching your body, hey, we're safe enough to pause.
Okay, so we know the biology. We know we need to actively collect and savor these 20-second micro moments to rebuild the brain's capacity for joy and resilience. But how do we practically integrate this?
That's the real challenge, right?
Yeah, because the reality is our days are chaotic. We aren't monks on a mountain. How do we build a toolkit for this in the real world?
Well, the sources offer several incredibly practical, actionable strategies, and the underlying theme for all of them is consistency. You're trying to build a new habit for your hardware.
Let's start with the classic The Glimmer Diary, which is essentially micro-gratitude journaling. We know it works, but the clinical findings behind it are what shocked me.
The HRV study.
Yeah. There was research published looking at the physiological impact of this. They found that just writing down 3 small glimmers a night significantly improved heart rate variability in only 2 weeks.
It's amazing.
Just 14 days to physically change your heart's adaptability to stress.
The mechanism there is repetition. The act of writing forces you to recall the glimmer, to visualize it, and to savor it again, effectively giving you a second dose of that ventral vagal activation.
So you get the chemical hit when it happens and a secondary hit when you write it down.
Precisely.
But if journaling isn't your thing or you just don't have the time before bed, there is a highly tactile strategy I absolutely love from Victoria Spashenko.
Oh, yes.
She is a solution-focused practitioner, and she calls it the bean experiment.
This is a masterclass in interrupting an automatic process with a physical action.
It is so wonderfully simple. You put a handful of dry beans or pebbles or coins, whatever you have, into your left pocket at the start of the day.
Okay.
And every single time you notice a glimmer, every time you have a micro moment of gratitude and you stop to savor it for 20 seconds, you physically take 1 bean out of your left pocket and move it to your right pocket.
I love this because it disrupts the subconscious stress loop with a conscious, physical, tactile movement.
Exactly. And by the end of the day, you literally have a physical measurement in your right pocket of the good things that happen to you.
It proves to your negativity bias that safety does exist.
And it isn't just about individual regulation either. We can also use glimmers for family and community regulation.
Right, because we don't exist in a vacuum.
No. The research from Live Oak Chiropractic specifically focuses on family dynamics, because a stressed parent almost inevitably creates a stressed child.
It's so true. They talk about creating predictable family rituals that sync up the nervous systems of everyone in the house, a concept called co-regulation.
Co-regulate.
Yeah, it's a massive part of mammalian biology. Our nervous systems are constantly communicating with the nervous systems of the people around us through tone of voice, facial expressions, and posture.
So if I'm stressed, my kid's neuroception picks up on that threat.
Immediately. Live Oak suggests simple rituals to hack this, like gratitude breathing, taking a collective deep breath as a family, and naming one small glimmer on the exhale.
They also talk about gratitude touch.
Right, pairing a verbal glimmer with physical affection, like a hug or holding hands.
Which adds another layer of biological armor, doesn't it?
It really does. Physical touch from a trusted person actively boosts oxytocin, which is a hormone that fundamentally suppresses cortisol and lowers stress across the board. You are literally sharing your safety signal with another person's nervous system.
That is beautiful. But what if your baseline is already overwhelmed? We've been talking a lot about neurotypical stress, but when you look at the resources on neurodiversity, the stakes for this vagal break are so much higher.
They absolutely are.
The Neurodiversity Education Academy points out that for people with ADHD or autism who frequently face overwhelming sensory input and intense social exhaustion, their nervous systems are often perpetually stuck in that fight, flight, or freeze state.
For neurodivergent individuals, the world is often fundamentally dysregulating. The environmental inputs are simply too loud, too bright, or too chaotic.
So having a predictable glimmer toolkit isn't just a nice self-care coping mechanism. It becomes an essential biological anchor.
Yes.
It could be having noise-canceling headphones readily available, carrying a specific textured object to touch, or having a playlist of highly familiar soothing songs.
These are deliberate tools used to navigate sensory overwhelm and turn fleeting glimmers into what they call glows.
Glows. I like that.
Yeah, glows are sustained moments of well-being. And if we connect this to the bigger picture, creating a glow is the ultimate goal here. You are trying to string enough 20-second glimmers together that they form a continuous state. Whether you are using dry beans in your pocket to track your gratitude, taking 30 seconds to hold a warm mug and feel the heat, or doing breathing exercises with your kids, you are accumulating biological safety signals.
And over time, these small daily interventions create a critical mass.
Exactly. They permanently tip the baseline of your autonomic nervous system from a state of hypervigilance into a state of resilient regulation.
It is a complete reframe of how we view our own mental health and capacity for joy.
It really is.
Like, glimmers and micro moments of gratitude aren't just fluffy, toxic positivity concepts meant for inspirational bumper stickers.
No, not at all.
They are clinically proven biological safety switches. They improve your vagal tone, they lower your cortisol, and they physically pull your hardware out of survival mode 20 seconds at a time.
They absolutely do. And, as we wrap up this deep dive, I want to leave you with a final thought, inspired by Victoria Spashenko's concept of the glimmer question.
I love this part.
When we are stuck in a dark, anxious, or deeply stressful period in our lives, we usually think we need a massive, life-altering miracle to pull us out of it.
Right. We think we need a new job, a sudden windfall of money, or a total change of scenery to finally feel okay.
Exactly. But what if the miracle you are waiting for isn't a grand event at all? What if your miracle is actually already happening, scattered across your day in tiny 20-second increments of safety and beauty that you simply haven't trained your brain to notice yet?
Man, that is an incredibly powerful perspective shift.
It changes everything.
The miracle is already here. We just need to build the neural pathways to actually see it. So as you go about the rest of your day, look around you. What is one glimmer you can notice and savor right now? Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.